I'm not interested.
All right, well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about Logan? Stick around and find out. Bow dow 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 bow dow 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 ba da 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 dow 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 dow. I don't know. That was my attempt at like mashing up the old X-Men animated theme with like some kind of pseudo Johnny Cash kind of sound. Because that's kind of what it's part of the soundtrack at the end of the credits. But anyway, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Play Productions. This is my uncut review of Logan, which I'm recording here in my car because this is one of those rare back-to-back movie review days. I'm going to be going back into the theater and reviewing The Shack after this, but I wanted to get my thoughts out about Logan before I did that. The synopsis for this movie, which I don't have, I'm just totally working off of notes here on sticky pad stuff, so I haven't been to IMDb, but I would describe this is a movie that takes place in the late 2020s, and mutants have basically faded out of existence. Most of them have died out. There are not new ones being born, and nobody really knows why, but that's not really kind of the main mystery of the story. We find that Wolverine, Logan, is taking care of Professor Xavier in his old age, and Professor Xavier is like 90 years old, and he's also suffering from some kind of like elderly, mental illness. And you can imagine how dangerous that makes someone like him, and just how much he's going to need care. And so it's a really interesting situation. And in the middle of all this, there is a young girl who has a connection to Logan that is unclear at first, but she has powers that are very similar to his. If you've seen the trailer, you already kind of know this. And so but she's being hunted down by some evil men. And so Logan has to figure out, well, what is my connection to this girl? And related to that question, what is then my responsibility toward this girl and her safety? And so he ends up taking some degree of responsibility for her, or kind of being, roped into that a degree of responsibility. And so they take off, and they're on the run from this organization that is trying to hunt her down. And so that's the basic premise of the story. As far as like the script and the pacing and stuff, it can be a little bit, well, for me, it was a little bit slow at times, and part of that was maybe I don't know, because of I just wasn't used to seeing these characters in this type of movie. That said, I went into this hoping for and wanting a kind of a slower, more character-driven experience, and I definitely got that. That said, there were just very rare instances where I was like, they could have picked. I'm glad they're taking their time, and they're just letting these moments breathe, and having these nice still shots, and letting us just kind of observe these characters in silence so often. I really appreciate that. And yet there were some rare instances where I was like, this could be going forward just a little bit faster for me. Again, but I would not describe the whole movie as being slow or as being boring at all. I was very interested the entire time. I would describe this as a sci-fi drama with like bursts of like intense and brutal action. It has an R rating, and it definitely wants to take advantage of it. In fact, there was one scene where they put in just some brief nudity of a woman flashing that I was like, it just felt like, hey, we're rated R, we're going to take advantage of it, But thankfully that was isolated, it was very brief, and it wasn't even lit very well, so, but it was, he's still like, whatever, But, if you're wanting to see a Wolverine movie where he finally cuts loose and you're getting like stabs through people's heads and all kinds of, gory kills, this is the Wolverine movie for you. They're definitely just cutting loose. And one of the reasons that he's doing that is because he is having some problems with his healing, and which that is explored and kind of revealed. The cause of that is revealed later on in the movie. But as a result of that, he's just more tired and he's not healing as quickly, and so he's just not as capable. And so you could see his increased brutality is kind of like a response to that. Like, okay, I've got to make sure that every hit really counts. I can't pull punches anymore because I'm at the end of my rope, you know. And I appreciated that kind of tone, that you know, the normally invulnerable, you know, Wolverine. I still appreciated that he had some of his healing factor. I didn't like the in the movie where they took him to Japan, where he lost it altogether for a while. I liked that he had it, and so you could count on him coming back, but he was still able to experience suffering and just being pushing. It was very like kind of a Die Hard, you know, kind of a plot type thing where he's just more and more getting worn down and beaten down and still dragging himself and showing his determination through the whole movie. So and still doing, you know, the things that we want to see Wolverine do, still capable of those things and still capable of surviving the kinds of things we want to see Wolverine survive. There are a few jokes that are kind of like interspersed throughout, but certainly not more than the average X-Men movie, and not near as many as the average Marvel movie. And the jokes are kind of like, you know, they're almost kind of a dark humor in the midst of these very bleak circumstances. And so I appreciate that. I appreciate that humor can be used in different ways. It doesn't have to be this kind of like jokey, quippy stuff like you see so often in the Marvel movies. It can be this kind of like dry or sarcastic humor in the midst of a really bleak circumstance. And so I really appreciated both the infrequent use of humor and the nature of the humor in this movie compared to, you know, what's become so common in superhero movies these days. One thing that I just want, you know, this movie to bring about is more superhero movies like this. Like, this is what superhero movies can be. They don't all have to be this one kind of vibe, this cookie cutter vibe that the Marvel movies are common for. Or if DC kind of settles on a vibe, it doesn't have to be that one vibe. There can be all kinds of different tones. In the publishing history of comic books, we have all kinds of different tones of stories, and some of the most groundbreaking and celebrated stories in comic book history are very quiet, you know, like Superman, A Man for All Seasons, or Batman Year One. There's a quietness to a lot of pages in those books, and I would love to see more superhero movies explore these other tones that are available and have been explored for decades in comic books. I'd love to see that same variety of tone come into the film version of superhero stories. And I think that this movie, along with some others that we've seen in the past, is a reminder that we can do that. And so I hope that'll continue in the future. The cast was great. Both Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart did really compelling stuff. I think that there was some opportunity for Hugh Jackman to play Wolverine in a different way. He's world weary, you know, and that's just kind of, that feeds into the theme of this, which I'll get into in a second. But he was just world weary. He's tired of life, you know, and he's just kind of wanting to shut off and be alone. He's tired of seeing people die. He's tired of hurting people. And so it was just neat to see him kind of play that that type of version of Wolverine. And Patrick Stewart was playing a very different version of Charles Xavier, but one that made sense as this man becomes older and older and dealing with infirmity and stuff like that. And you know, he's always been paralyzed before, but this movie deals with his infirmity in a much more grounded and related way. You know, I mean, Logan is helping him go to the bathroom, you know, for Pete's sake, and making sure that he takes his medication so that he doesn't have these seizures which cause these horrible effects to everyone around him, you know. So there's just some neat grounded character stuff going on there, and that Patrick Stewart is absolutely taking advantage of and bringing about through his performance. He just reminds you of, you know, maybe some elderly people that you've known in your life, and the way he's written as well, I think also is reflective of the stage of life that he's in, where, you know, he's everything, all of his life is kind of behind him, and his perspective on life has boiled down to what are the most important things in life. And again, I'll talk about that when I get to kind of the themes that they play with. But I so appreciated his caliber of ability, and his performance in this movie was just, it was funny, it was touching, it was really great stuff. I don't, because I don't have access to IMDb at the moment, I don't know the name of the new young actress that's being introduced in this movie, playing the young, similarly powered character that Logan is protecting. She is quiet and doesn't speak for much of the movie, but she does a really great job. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see kind of what kind of roles she does in the future. If this is kind of a one-off thing for her that she just happened to be perfect for, or if they're going to be using her a lot more for other roles in the future. But for this role, she was great. She was great in her stoicism, and she was great also in her rage and some of the emotions that she really had to display. So I really appreciated the performances all around, especially from those main three in the cast. Let's see what else. Okay, visuals and stunts. There's not a lot of like flashy CGI in this movie. It's very practical and kind of grounded, and the fight choreography is really cool and really enjoyable and brutal. And but this is not like a big flashy movie. You know, if you're looking for this to be like, you know, since it's Hugh Jackman's last movie playing the character of Wolverine, you know, if you're wanting like his send-off to be this big spectacle of rage blades all over the place, this isn't going to be that for you, both in terms of the individual fight scenes and certainly in terms of what the movie is as a whole experience. As I said, it's much more of a sci-fi drama with frequent, well, maybe infrequent, you could even say, brutal, intense action. Let's see here. So, okay, so let's talk about themes. I always try to ask myself when I'm enjoying some kind of a geek experience, is there anything of worthwhile spiritual, moral, or philosophical significance that might stimulate worthwhile conversation as a result of taking in this experience? And this one, I think, maybe the themes seem to be, it's a movie about endings. It's a movie about the end of life and looking back on your life and evaluating, you know, what's important. You know, as Logan is looking back on his life, he's kind of wanting to forget. He's kind of wanting to detach. He's just experienced so much pain. And by contrast, Charles Xavier is wanting him to experience the important things of life, which are displayed in this movie. One of the main ones is family, and him, you know, wanting him to embrace family life and valuing family, valuing people, and specifically valuing family. And then also what's interesting is it's not really ever stated. It's certainly not by, you know, in the dialogue, but along with these images of family and some of these nicer, quiet, sweeter moments in the movie are these positive representations of faith, and I think specifically Christian faith, not in a doctrinal way that's being presented, but, you know, all the examples of faith that are presented in these kind of sweet, quiet moments have the trappings of Christianity as opposed to some other religion. And so I think that's really interesting that we haven't really seen this kind of positive presentation of faith, or certainly Christian faith specifically, in any of the X-Men movies, except maybe fleetingly, or maybe just kind of giving a little bit of, you know, lip service, you know, and it's not that they're validating any particular, you know, beliefs or truth claims of Christianity, but at least culturally, they seem to be attaching value and goodness and sweetness to faith. And so that was just kind of interesting to kind of pick that out of the movie. But yeah, so I think that's, you know, I have no idea what your tastes are in movies, but if I were to go back in time, I would say, Peter, you know what? Flip a coin, and if it's heads, go see this movie in theaters. And if it's tails, just wait and insta-buy. This is one you're going to want in your collection. You're going to want to watch it probably a number of times. It's definitely your kind of movie. There's just a little touch of slowness here and there that makes it so that it's not like this thing that you really need to see right now. And although it doesn't have, although it has, you know, a wonderful pace and drama and groundedness to it emotionally, it doesn't have, you know, also like visual spectacle, you know, and you like to have your cake of your, you know, emotional, character-driven stuff, and eat it too, and have the big spectacle. And this doesn't have that. But that said, it's really a great movie that you're going to enjoy, and you're going to want it in your collection. So don't neglect this one at all. All right, that's it for me. I'd love to get your thoughts in the comments below, and then I hope you join us soon. Where's my other sign? Did I put it somewhere? I brought my sign. There we go. Boom! at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth.
Black.